What's up, you guys? Happy Friday, Friday the 13th. Thank God it's Friday. We are going live today with one of my athletes, Thierry, which I'm going to see if I can log him in quickly. Here we go. Invite. All right, there he is. He's joined. Hey!
Hi, Erin.
How are you? Can you hear
Can you hear
me?
me?
Yeah.
Yes,
How
I
are you?
can.
How are you feeling?
Pre- Pretty good. Almost rested.
Okay, so I want to introduce you. So Thierry Billet, did I say that right, or is it Billet? How do you say your last name?
They say billet, I say billet, but that's all right.
Okay, so Thierry, you started working with me about, I guess it's been since Miami Man, right? We started way
Yeah,
back in him.
yes, exactly.
Yeah, you had already qualified for Utah at that time, right?
No, I signed in for Utah. What was supposed to be a 70.3.
Right. So we had no idea that we were going to be training for a full Ironman first. We thought we were going to go for Alaska. That was your A race, correct?
Yes, exactly. Yeah,
So why don't
totally.
you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself? So where are you from?
Okay, I'm from like France originally. I moved to the US like full time 8 years ago, and I'm 44 right now. Started to do triathlon like last year, and before that, been doing a little bit of half marathon, getting ready for first 70.3. Got hit by a car, so my first like half Ironman has been delayed a little bit because of that. And then when I was back on my feet, I start like training again, and yeah, and did my 70.3 in spring. Qualified for the world in Almere in Netherlands, which was my first full like Iron distance. And went pretty well. Finished it up in 11 hours. That's amazing for me. Just amazing to finish. Yeah, it was really nice for sure. Like beautiful experience.
Yeah.
Then did like other like 7.3 and start to don't get better anymore. And I do at Miami Man. Then I'm like, okay, I'm the coach if I want to improve and don't go too crazy or stupid on my like training. And, and then I started working with you, and now I'm faster for sure, better. But yeah, there's still like a lot of work. I found out that this weekend.
Right. So nothing like wakes you up than a race, right? The race is the day to show up and find out where you still need work, but also where you've improved. I want to really acknowledge you because you don't know how lucky you are because you're already so fast. Most people don't come into the sport and do their first Ironman in 11 hours. So you have to acknowledge yourself for that you are a very strong and fast athlete, right?
Yeah, yeah. I didn't really realize.
Yeah, so I just want to mention that because we didn't have the best result at this race that this past week. And I feel like this is something that should be addressed. When you take on a course like Utah, okay, you're going to be humbled. I mean, this is the best of the best. It's the hardest, in my opinion, it's the hardest course in the world, okay, for an Ironman. And I've had other athletes come back from that race and literally not do triathlon anymore because it demoralized them so badly. You know what I mean? So I just want to acknowledge you that you did an amazing job, and I want to get to all the details of the race, but you've come such a long way. So let's go through the training over the past 6 months because
Yeah,
every time you tested, your power is better. Every time you did a swim test, you're faster. Every time you did a run test, you're faster. Your fitness was there,
yeah.
right? So dialed in. But again, we weren't expecting a full Ironman, and you said, I want to do it anyway. I want to go for the full Ironman, right?
Yes.
Do you regret
I,
that decision? Do you regret that decision?
oh, it's breaking up. Sorry.
No. Do you regret that decision?
Oh no, I mean, if tomorrow you ask me if I want to do it again, I'm like, yes, but I'm just going to manage the race on a different way and probably go a little deeper on what's going to happen like on that race, like more because basically I ride the bike course, but I didn't check the running, which was like for me the biggest mistake I've made. Because if I would have checked it, I would have been, oh, okay, this is what's gonna happen. You're never gonna run like 8 minutes per mile. There is absolutely no way it's gonna happen. Because when I saw like
Yeah.
that freaking hill like this, I'm like, oh my god. I'm like, also just, and I think you get that I got a lot of like experience, I would say, during the race because basically I got off my bike, my legs were not like the best, but and I'm like I still wanted I did what you said to back up a little bit, but I haven't done it enough because I'm like, oh, I'm not running 8. I'm like running 8:30 right now. And I'm like, okay, a little slower. And then I'm like, okay, no, now I'm gonna run 8. Anyways, what am doesn't matter what's gonna happen, I'm gonna push. And after 8 miles, I was like, oh shit, I don't have anything more in my legs. I'm like, if I would have first look at the course and be like, you cannot run 8, just run 9, but keep running instead of like running,
And walk.
walking, and walk. Because I mean, the walking just killed me. Normally, I never walk, and at the end, I'm like, that was my biggest mistake. I feel, but
So
you,
on the run was basically the biggest mistake. But also, okay, so let's go back. So we knew you
yeah,
were honestly the best. I feel like you're in the best shape you've ever been in your,
yeah,
short. You've only been in triathlon 2 years, but I know that we peaked you. I know that I asked you. I know my workouts, and I know what I asked you to do leading up to this
I
race,
can't
and you
hear
hit
you.
every single workout, right? So I know you were ready as you could be personally for this event. But it's a
Yeah.
very, very difficult event. So yeah, of course, not you. So you mean you never even like rode the bike course with your run course with your bike or drove it or anything?
Nothing. Biggest mistake ever. And I had the time to do it, and I was like, that's okay. I'm gonna figure out on race day. So before like, the race, when I got my checking bag and everything, I look at the map.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, it's not so bad. And then I'm like, when I started running, I'm like, oh my god, it's gonna be a nightmare.
Yeah.
Because
So,
even
yeah. That's definitely a tip. You always want to drive the bike course because you want to have a mental, a mental idea of how to plan your race. It's such a long day to not have that visual,
yeah,
you know, really, really help you. So definitely lesson learned. You'll never let that happen again for sure, right?
yeah, I've been so happy, like just riding, like really riding, driving, riding the most difficult section of the bike
Right.
makes me so much confident on the bike afterward. I'm like, okay, I know it's gonna happen. I've done it. It was not that bad.
Right.
Um, if I would have done the same on the run, I would have backing up way more, like be like smarter on my run instead
Yeah.
of being like trying to be Speedy Gonzalez, and it could not happen that day. That's for sure.
Right.
Yeah, it's
And just pacing yourself more. Okay, so that was lesson learned. But then there's the actual conditions of Utah, right? You wake up
yeah.
in the morning. How cold was it in the morning of the race?
I mean, we've been lucky because it's been like 50, like most 50 degrees almost every morning. But on the race day, it's been like 70 in the morning, and the lake came from like 58 to 65, I think.
Oh
Something
wow, that's a lot warmer. Yeah.
that's a lot warmer. So, but we were like allowed to get the to keep the to wear the booties, you know. So I'm put them on just to be like way more comfortable. And at the end, the swim was good. Like it was not like as cold as during the practice like session where after 20 minutes, you remember I texted you, I'm like, my God, after 20 minutes, I don't have feet anymore. It's like, it's so cold. So yeah, no, I
Okay.
mean,
So we actually haven't had our coach call, and I did that on purpose because I wanted to talk about like what happened because you are capable of swimming the 2.4 in like a sub 2 minute per 100, right?
Yeah.
And your total time was like a 2:20. So I want to know what happened. Like what happened in the swim?
1:27.
1:27 was your
What
pace.
what happened? Honestly, I know now.
Oh,
I
your
don't.
time was.
I don't. Yeah, yeah. No worries. I don't swim enough like open water. And basically, what I'm doing, I'm just protecting myself about like I know how much I can push on the bike. I know I can push on the run, but I don't know how much I can push on the swim because that's an excellent question. Because basically, like 2 days ago, I checked how fast I was for my first like Iron distance, and my time is the same. So after like 5 months of training, so but I have to say I got off the water like feeling great. So my fitness was better, but now I have to swim way more open water and push more open water because I know how to pace in the pool, but I don't know how to pace open water. And because I was not out of brace, my heart rate I felt was like good, and I'm
Okay.
like, okay, I'm fine. Let's keep going.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
so that's a skill. That's definitely a skill that we need to implement in your training in the future, and also just making sure that you can recover. So I don't know if you've seen the pros when they race the swim; they're going all out, right?
yeah,
They come out of the water in 50 minutes. How can they do it? And it's basically because they're using different muscles than you do when you ride and you run. Because you have so much fitness on the bike and on the run, you can push harder and still recover because I know what training you had.
yeah,
So this is just for me, I believe it was a perception of yourself that you weren't sure you could push what we had trained and still feel good on the bike and the run. But I know with confidence you could have hit that 2 minute per 100, no problem. But I just think it was also cold. And sometimes you're just oriented in the cold. You said you came out a little dizzy. And
yeah,
sometimes that kind of stuff happens when the water's colder. And we live in Florida, right? So we're used to swimming in like really hot water. So the biggest thing that we're gonna have to do for Alaska is really get you, like you said, really comfortable pushing at your capability in the open water for 500, 1,000, 2,000 sets, right? So
yes,
that you can do that in Alaska, because that's our next race. Honestly, we're gonna keep training. Don't worry. You're gonna get faster. You're gonna get stronger. Your power is gonna go up. We're not stopping. But if you do what you're capable of the swim, say your swim fitness stays exactly the same, I guarantee you a sub 11 in Alaska, right? Just
okay.
because you learned so much from this race about the pacing in the swim. Would you say that's true?
Yes, exactly. Like yeah, like I know I could have pushed way more on the swing, but I'm like, first, yeah, I wasn't out of brace. I'm not, and I was so happy because the week before the race, I was like, oh my God, my 200s are like 145. I'm like, and I felt okay. I was pushing for sure. I was like really pushing. So I'm like, okay, from 145, maybe at 145, I'm gonna be like really comfortable.
Right.
But so I took it easy. I'm not gonna lie. I'm like, I'm gonna just swim the distance, and
Right.
then I spend less time in transition to compensate. It's like
Right. And also, how did the cold affect you? How did the cold affect you?
I'm not gonna lie. Getting off the water, I was like dizzy, like a little bit dizzy, and I tried to spend the less time as possible in the transition. Just like switch gear, eat like banana, like eat some stuff, and just get out. And the transition, I mean, I think my first transition is like 7 or 8 minutes, something like that. But I didn't lose like so much time. It's just because it was long, like just to go from the water inside the tent, from the tent to the bike and out of T1. That
Right.
was like really long distance.
Okay.
I didn't waste much time. I just like spent probably 2 minutes in the bathroom, just and just be like that. I'm stop on the bike. So like that, and I didn't stop on the bike. So I could have saved like a couple minutes for sure on the swim. There is
Right.
no.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I was thinking you were going to come out like a 120. That
Yeah,
was my prediction for you. So anyway, it wasn't that far off of it. But I just know that you're capable of so much more, and I'm excited to keep getting better on the swim. And the swim is definitely one of the most technical of the three sports
yeah,
that you really focus on your drills and all those details, the video analysis that we do to help your form. But then it comes down to the training. You know, at the bottom, at the end of the line, you do have to train. So we have that plan for the future. So let's talk about the bike, because again, you live in Florida, so you spend a lot of time on Zwift. I know that. And we also did a lot of low resistance training. But did you feel, and I know there's that last 100 at mile 100, it's the hardest part of the bike. I mean, you started your average bike split until like mile 80 was like, I believe it was like 18 to 20 miles an hour. You know what I mean? So it was, you were like right on track. So what happened like during the bike? Just explain a little bit about the bike.
I mean, I really feel the training on the bike was good for sure, and I've been really happy to switch my also like technical stuff. I've been really happy that I switched my wheel, because downhill I was going, I think my fastest speed was like 42 miles an hour downhill. So that was no joke. I was like, I'm flying, you know. But then I felt my legs were there for sure. But the last four like up climb, like the last climb in Snow Canyon, my legs were like toasted. That's for sure. But beside that, I felt strong. I was really happy about. I checked my watts and not the average watts, because this is like not true because of the, but I think I was like 158, 160, which for me is great. And I've been pushing sometimes. I'm not pushing like on purpose, but I'm like just looking at my computer. I'm like, wow, 250, 320, and I felt so good doing it. So I'm like, it's just like the 4 last mile were like, wow. You get in Snow Canyon, no more wind, 95 degrees, straight up for 4 miles. I'm like, oh, wow. So I think maybe a little more, because I know like width is great because you don't have any break. And I felt my legs better than ever. But I think I could even work harder on that. What I'm saying.
Walk faster?
No, like work harder on like climbing, like getting stronger.
So I don't know, you're breaking up a little bit. That's why we can't hear you so much. But you know, we had you doing those bridge repeats and then traveling lunges and the step ups and all that stuff. And that's all great for your muscular endurance. But you know, at 100 miles, you are fatigued. You know what I mean? I think it's cruel that they put that climb in that place, right? It's crazy. And it just makes you appreciate the pros so much more. Like what they're freaking capable of is unbelievable. So you're getting lots of cheers. Everybody says you're a badass rock star. So congratulations. Also, so you got off the bike, and I can tell you shook a little bit. You were like, okay, because how did you feel when you came off the bike?
I was like, wow, the bike is over, you know. Like, now let's get on. Got off the bike. I'm like, okay, I need to breathe a little bit. I wasn't out of breath because basically we got 5 to 6 miles of downhill to St. George. So it's the time to recover a little bit. So my heart rate went down, which was nice. Transition. And it's funny because there was somebody sleeping in transition, and they mentioned that a guy spent in T2 1 hour and 9.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
So the guy said he took a nap before going to run. That's funny. So I went fast, like through the transition, eat again, and started like running, and it was like freaking hot, like really hot. And just the first part of the run is like a climb, and I'm like, wow. So this broke my leg. Basically, and then it was like a climb less harder until we go down all the way. I'm like, wow, the downhill hurt as much as going uphill, because you have to
break.
Like,
you're breaking.
Exactly. And I'm like, and it's funny because I watched a video about Lionel Sanders and he was speaking about it, and I'm like, oh shit, he's right. it's painful. No joke. And could not eat any more gel during the run. Impossible. My was like, I'm done. So I start getting like fruit. I got some Coke because this gave to my brain like a big, like a shock. And I'm like, wow, this is
We
good.
talked about the caffeine, about having caffeine in the last half of the bike and the last
Yeah.
half of the, yeah, you need Coke or a Red Bull or something to keep you focused on the job at hand, because you can end up just walking if you're not,
Yes,
right?
exactly. After, I think I overloaded my stomach and I could have let go like a little less water, less. I mean, this is something I felt. But I felt my legs were like, because and something oh yeah, something I realized at the beginning of the run, I could not get my heart rate lower than 140. Normally I'm like running like at
Yeah.
8 minutes at 120 something, 125, and I'm,
Yeah.
if it was a heat or whatever, but I'm like, wow, I cannot lower that, and I'm like, shit, and I know if I push it's gonna
Go high.
blow up. So I
Yeah.
tried to slow down, and the sun came down. I don't know. Boom. Went down to 132. Like, oh, I'm back running. I mean,
Okay.
I did for last 5K,
Right.
like 9 minutes, and I felt so good. It was
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah, so there is also this thing called cardiac drift, that sometimes your heart rate won't be what you expect it to just because it's been going for so many hours, right? So
Yeah.
sometimes it's a little high, sometimes it's a little low. It just depends on what's happening. But the heat was most likely the factor, because your heart is pumping extra to cool yourself down, right? And the fact when the sun went down, your heart rate went down, that's probably what happened. And yeah, honestly, when it's a cooler, so it's drier out there, you probably needed less hydration, because you weren't, for us, the humidity and the heat makes us sweat a lot. Sometimes when it's drier, you don't sweat as much. And so then you're drinking and you don't need as much. So you got to kind of play with it. We got to see how that's going to be in Alaska as well.
Yeah.
Right. So when you saw you were 5K out and you decided to just go for it, what was that feeling like? What was the feeling
Uh,
finally crossed the finish line?
I mean, it was just like, I don't know why. At some point, you are like flying, your mind goes crazy, and you look at the watch, you're like, but I'm running now. After like so many miles, you're like, I'm like, oh, okay, here 3 to 4 more miles to do, and you're like, oh, now I'm like 8:30 right now. I'm like, what is going wrong, And
Right.
everybody like cheering and all that makes you like, I mean, it's you cannot describe that. It's crossing the finish line. You're like, I mean, it's amazing. That's for sure.
And how do you find the energy to do that jump? You're like 6 feet off the ground.
I don't know. I don't know. I like to do it. I'm not gonna lie. But yeah, I'm like, okay, let's push it up one more time. I felt my quad were about to explode. Honestly,
I believe, I believe it. You see in your picture, but there's a guy and he's like, what the hell?
as a poor guy, I like killed this finish line for sure. No,
Well,
but
awesome. I just want to say how proud we are of you, as the Full Circle tribe. We were all riveted. I don't know if you saw all the messages in
yeah,
the chat. Yeah,
really,
pretty amazing, right? And we just support you so much. And you just took on like the biggest challenge that you can take in the sport. I mean, that's the World Championships, right? And so I wanted to know, I know your goal is Alaska, but what's the next big goal?
I mean, I really want to go to Kona. I'm not gonna lie. I don't know how much it's gonna take, how much energy it's gonna take, but I mean, I never. Now I know how hard it's gonna be to do it, and I know I have two options. The first one is qualified by the time, or the second one, like 12 Ironman. If I have to do 12, I'm gonna. I don't mind. That's what.
Okay, so I predict you're not going to have to do 12. We're going to get you there. Seriously, your swim is your biggest limiter, and that's my expertise. So we got to just make sure we get together a little bit more often for
Yeah,
those swims, because you do have the potential. You're so new to the sport. It takes,
yeah,
you can learn the basics, but to really dial it in for an Ironman, it takes some time, right? So
yeah.
that'll be our biggest focus, and I'm super excited. I know you're going to PR at Alaska, and then let's see what happens after that. But anything else you want to share?
I mean, no, just it was like an amazing like experience, and I know it's a lot of your time training. You don't have really like a social life, but every time I was training, I was like thinking about that day. And on that day was the dark room or whatever, I don't know what you call that, like the dark spot, or you think like how many hours you spend like training and even like swimming and all that, like all you've been through. And I got like crazy emotion, and I really recommend to anyone, even if you do it in 17 hours, just do it, because it's such an amazing like accomplishment. It's my second one, but better than the first one. Even if my time was not the best, I'm like, it's amazing. And what you share with like the other athletes who are in the same pain as you during the race, or when you feel good, you try just to like help people by just like telling them like, you're good, you're fine, you're gonna make it, and people are doing that to you. It's a community. It's not, you're not okay, you are alone, because they run for you and against you, but at the end there's so many people around you. It's really amazing. So don't doubt on yourself. Train. Maybe not everybody can, but I think everybody can take the start, like be there at the start for sure.
Yeah, so there's a saying that Ironman is one of the most emotional days you can have, right? Besides maybe having a baby. And you'll never experience that. So
Thanks.
just know that those tears are, you've worked hard. You worked really, really hard to get there, right? And just to, even if it wasn't the perfect day, you learned a lot. You learned a lot about yourself, and you learned a lot about what you're capable of, and what you're capable of to keep pushing through despite it's not your perfect day and you're not seeing the numbers, right? It's about the experience, like you said, and the relationships you've cultivated and all the stuff you're learning about yourself and improving, right?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it's exactly that. It's amazing. Like you are like, oh, I didn't know, because that was a dream for me to do an Ironman, like, because I like, I didn't get the best life ever, and I'm like, my life goal is just to do like at the beginning a 70.3, and you always want more. I mean, and I'm like, and now I'm like, no, I'm not. And I'm gonna be honest with you, during the race, I'm like, oh shit, I have Alaska in 3 months, and then I have like Florida in like at the end of the year. I'm like, maybe it's too much. But after like 2 days of rest, I'm like, no, it's gonna be fine. We're gonna make it.
I also do want to recommend, I mean, everybody out there, Thierry is resting, right? So his homework is for 10 days. I want him to do nothing triathlon, and that's on purpose, because you can burn out in this sport. You totally can. I'm a victim of that. I know many, many people that are victims of that. But if you want it, you can have that balance. So you see that yin yang in my logo, that is there for a reason, right? So right now you're rebuilding, you're nourishing, you're building about your chi and all your confidence, so that we can come back and then take it to the next level, right?
Yeah, no, and I'm like, oh, today I wasn't my bike and everything. I was like, I will go for a quick ride just to spin, and then like, no, I'm just gonna clean it. It's gonna
Good.
be
Yes. Take some time. Your body will thank you. Your body will thank you. We got a long year ahead of us, right?
Yeah, totally. No, that's great, and I'm really appreciative like coaching and everything, like all the people who support me, and like it's been really amazing. I have to say that.
Proud of you, Thierry. So congratulations.
Thank you very much.
All right. Have a great weekend. Keep resting, okay?
Sure, I will. Have a
Okay.
great
Bye.
bye, Erin. Thanks.